You're listening to the Journey Podcast. Can the practice of presence in action enhance our mental and physical well-being and enrich our experiences? Listen to today's episode to learn how being fully present in our actions can lead to a more intentional and fulfilling way of living. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Today is part of International Stress Awareness Week in the UK, and this is a special bonus episode. In this episode, we explore the transformative concept of presence in action, unraveling the profound implications of being fully engaged in the present moment. Our discussion revolves around the practice of cultivating mindfulness and awareness as we navigate life's challenges and opportunities. Our conversation unveils the enriching potential of presence and action as a guiding principle for intentional living. We explore how this concept invites individuals to immerse themselves fully in the current experience, fostering deeper connections with themselves and their surroundings. By embracing this practice, we can tap into a renewed sense of purpose and cultivate mindfulness in our daily lives, ultimately fostering enhanced well-being and a greater appreciation for each moment. Lisa Joy Glassman is an integrated movement specialist. She draws upon her experience as a licensed massage therapist, yoga teacher, and personal trainer to guide students to make small shifts in their daily practices to heal their bodies and free their minds from pain. Here is my interview with Lisa Joy Glassman. Hi, Lisa Joy. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because presence in action is such an interesting space for holistic healing. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Petra. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this because we actually have not talked about this topic on the podcast before. So I'm excited to dive in. So for starters, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and your own story and how you came to do what you do?
Sure. Well, my name is Lisa Joy, and I have been working in the movement and health world for over 15 years. I started working as a personal trainer, and I went on to teach yoga and meditation. I became a massage therapist to help bring in hands-on therapy for many of my clients. And basically by year 2, people would say, "Oh, what do you do as a personal trainer? Do you like count for people or, what's happening?" And I thought about it. Obviously, people are being a little bit tongue in cheek or whatever, but I said, I really help people breathe. And it became very apparent to me early on in the process of how important breathing was. That's why I went into the yoga work and the breath work that I did. And what I discovered more and more, the more people that I worked with and the more that I held space for people to be themselves. Sometimes I thought I was bartender, I was hairdresser, I was personal trainer, I was confidant, therapist, friend, is that people were utilizing the time that they set aside for themselves to exercise really just as time to be present, to be themselves, and to have that focus. And so, long journey through the pandemic, here we are today. And being present is really, I say it's the goal and it's the path for healing. So I work a lot with musicians and performers and high-level professionals where you have to be on at a certain moment, at a certain time in order to do your craft, to show your art, to be in charge. And, it's nice to think that we can be on and then be off. But if we really want to be good at being on and being present and being in the moment, then we have to practice. And the reason I wanted to come onto your podcast was you really work with stress and anxiety and mental health. And all of that really comes in spaces where we're not present. When we're in a space of worrying about the future, or we can't stop thinking about things that have happened in the past, which are no longer true, that is when we start to spike our anxiety and our stress levels go up. And so I say that it's the path as well as the goal, because the path of being present and focusing on the present moment is really the key to dispelling the experience of not being present, the experience of worry and stress. That's how I got to be here where I am right now, present with you.
Wow, I love that. I love your explanation, and thank you so much for sharing that. There's so many insights in what you just said, and certainly how it all connects together with our well-being and with how we feel physically and mentally. And presence, like you said, it's such a huge key to all of that. Now, you work, as you mentioned, with performers and with high-level professionals on presence. And what kind of techniques do you use when you work with them? Like, how do you, it's easy to tell someone to be present, but how do you actually get them to start working on that, and how to become present when you are stressed and thinking about nothing else?
Yeah. So I think of it as having a couple of different avenues, four main avenues. One is understanding that at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, at all of the time, that you are always with yourself. And so you are the instrument, you are the key to everything that happens in your life. Nothing happens without you. So when I work with performers, I always say, oh, the piano isn't going to play itself, despite the fact that we see some self-playing pianos out there, right? Somebody had to program that and create that. Someone had to think it through and do it. So focusing on self-care, just the act of taking the time, setting aside the time to focus on yourself and to understand that you only have this one body. The mind is attached to the brain that lives in it, that your brain is part of your body and the mind is a byproduct. So really caring for each facet of yourself, whether that's your skin, your muscles, your bone health, your nervous system, your organs. And the way that I first avenue into that is that this idea of self-care is to work with the breath. And the breath obviously is happening in the present moment. So having a variety of techniques to work with. When I work one-on-one with people, we look at their life, we look at, what's going on, what's their environment, what resonates for them. And so there's, a lot of different tactics out there, a lot of ways of manipulating the breath and controlling the breath. But again, just taking the time to even notice the breath can be the first step. And when people are in the height of anxiety, because I think you said like, well, what happens when someone's in that space of stress and anxiety? Just being able to recognize, okay, wait, it's me. I'm here in this space. I'm having this experience. What's going on in my body right now as I have this experience? And for the most part, almost everyone will notice that the breath is not regular. It's shallow, it's short, it's rapid, it's inconsistent. Maybe they're holding it, right? And so when we dial into the present moment and we notice what's going on with the breath, first just to observe, it already can take it down a notch. And then from there, each person can have a method, a way of working with the breath to change the experience of how you feel. And the truth is that rapid breathing or that inconsistent breathing or holding the breath is affecting the tension in your muscles. And the tension in your muscles is affecting how your brain is functioning, and it's affecting what's going on in the mind. So again, this idea of presence as the goal and presence as the tool to work with that, to manage stress and to dial it down, can really help shift your experience. And the second way that I work with folks is on just like realigning your posture. So many of us are experiencing just like this globalization of our world, this internet, phone, computer, everything's in front of us. Our heads are tending to be forward. Our necks are out of alignment. So literally the passageway from your nose and your mouth through your throat to your lungs is being compressed. It's being displaced. And your nervous system, which runs from your brain through your spinal cord and then out to the rest of the body, it too is also being displaced and compressed by posture, by the way that you're holding yourself in the world. So it gives the tool of realigning your posture. One, makes you come to the present moment. You have to assess, where am I actually in space? It teaches you how to activate your muscles. So immediately you can learn, oh, I can shift what my position is, right? And that's something that you can control. Because a lot of times when we have stress and anxiety, we feel like we don't have control, right? Because we're not living in the present moment and we're worried about the actions of other people. So by working with posture, first, we not only develop more control over our own experience and also teach ourselves that we have the ability to take action and then feel differently inside the body. But it also is training the body to create a better passageway for all of the nerves in the body to travel and for the pathway of the breath to travel through the throat. So the exact techniques, right? It's different for everyone, exactly what you do, but the idea of being able to utilize the breath and then utilize your positioning in space, which are both techniques of being present, allows you to move through that stress and anxiety. And then the fourth technique, this is where we get really specific with people, which is about just, how to take these little actions, right? These little small in the moment actions around the breath and around positioning your body and expand that fully. So it could be as much as like making choices about your living environment and the way you manage your energy and spend your time with other people. It could be the ingredients you put into your body that will then become the cells in your nervous system and in your lungs and in your heart. So certainly work with people on, choices around nutrition, around time management, around energy expenditure, and reserving for oneself. Again, that goes into self-care, right? So kind of all work back and forth with one another. That's the process that I use in order to help people be more present.
Wow, it's fascinating. And as you're talking, I see myself sitting upright in my chair and tucking my chin in and going, oh God, I'm slouching all over the place. And you know what I notice when you're saying those things, for me, there's a bit of a key theme that runs through that, and that is awareness. That is the awareness of our breath, the awareness that we are not in the right posture and that we are maybe not utilizing our resources to the best of our abilities. So does the program that you offer or the techniques that you offer, is there a certain kind of awareness that people have to come to at first to say, wait a minute, something's not quite right? And before that awareness kicks in, we just kind of live not present. We just on autopilot going every day. But when that awareness kicks in, then we are really ready for change. Is that something you experience as well?
Yes. So I want to touch on a few things that you said. So part of why I love the idea of coming on and having conversations, like in this with your listeners, is that just by speaking about it, just by hearing the idea, all of a sudden we make a shift, right? Like you're like, oh, I'm hearing you say this, I'm making a shift. And you might think about this podcast later and you might do it again, right? So the idea is that when we practice something, right, when we set aside the time, we make the decision. I know, and you said this, like, is there a building piece? Do people have to come to a moment of awareness that things are wrong? Yes. Usually people are in pain, right? Sometimes very severe physical pain, or they're really burnt out, right? A lot of times people do have to get to a certain level of pain, whether that's physical or mental or emotional, before they're ready to make a change for whatever that's worth. This is human condition, right? We just want to keep on going. And I know we talked a little bit before about like the layers in which this happens, right? So I'm sure this isn't the first time that someone's mentioned your posture. And it's probably not the first time that you've sat up straight. But the more that you intend to do it, the more that you practice it, the more that awareness gets imprinted into, we'll say, your nervous system, or people say it's imprinted into the body, right? Your body remembers, oh, I hold myself this way, I feel this way. before that, we don't remember because we don't have an experience connected to our awareness and our bodies. So once you start learning and once you start practicing using the breath and having the space to say, I am doing this. How do I feel? I'm doing this. How do I feel? I did this. How do I feel? Okay, I want to feel that way. I'm going to do this, right? And so that it becomes the reverse, right? I want to feel this way. I know I have this tool. I'm going to do that because I want that, right? So that gets, increased over time. And so I see that people can have exponential benefits from even practicing for just a few minutes. And, when I work with people, I work with them a lot on developing what I call the minimum daily requirement, which is, it could start with one thing. It could be literally, I'm going to take one breath once a day. I'm going to take one breath and I'm going to observe how I feel about it. Right. And then sometimes you can work that for a while. I remember I was deep into some tumultuous relationships happening in my life. Things were not going so great. And I was really, I was struggling. I've had plenty of rounds of struggling mental health challenges and feeling depressed and feeling concerned and worried and stressed out, often always centering on the potential actions of other people or their potential thoughts. Really always has to do with that, so it's like I started with what took me 2 to 4 minutes a day. And it was just a lot of awareness breathing. And then I slowly built it up. And for a while that went on for a year or so. And I didn't do it every day. And then the next year I was like, okay, I want to try to do it every day. Still didn't do it every day, but it was like 4 to 9 minutes for a while. And it was like just these few things. And they really do start to inform your nervous system, right? It gets awareness and signals. Do the thing that I know helps me. And it can be really challenging when we feel, dejected or disappointed or lost, or we feel like we don't have control over the circumstances in our lives. It can be very hard to get motivated and feel encouraged to take the actions that, and I'll put quotes around it, that we know we should do. And so I really work a lot with people on trying to unravel the judgment that we know we should, I could, I would, I want to, but. And so through the actions that are physical, through the breath and through the, the realignment practices in the body, I start to help people just see the truth of what's happening right now. And, we'll start to look at that mental language that we're constantly have on repeat and create an interruption. And when we want to make changes, like talk about making changes in your life, we have to interrupt the pattern of what we're doing. And it can really be as simple as just noticing and becoming aware of the breath, or noticing and becoming aware of your body and space, or taking in the environment around you and noticing that you're in it. It just creates an interruption. It's interrupting those patterns in the mind. Yeah, I think about meditation. I've taught a lot of meditation classes and breathwork classes, and almost everyone's objection, almost everyone is like, well, I can't meditate. I'm not good at it. I can't stop my mind. And I always tell people, that's okay. We're just going to just practice interrupting it. We're just going to practice making a little interruption, because if you want to change your mind, you have to do something that changes it. But that decision always does come down to a person. A person does have to decide. That is always internal.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that you present this sort of bite-sized for people, because I feel that if people are already experiencing stress or overwhelm, asking them to do like an hour routine every day or something becomes even more stressful and even more unlikely that they can do that and maintain that. So I love this little, we'll add a few minutes of this and a few minutes of that, and then we'll try doing an interrupt. That's amazing. And it's sustainable, because these are small changes that we can make in our lives that will eventually have really big results. Like you said, there's huge changes coming from just these small things that we do. So yeah, I love that setup. And I'm wondering, we talk a lot about being present, and I feel like it's a term that's kind of being thrown around a lot. People saying, oh, more mindfulness, more presence. But what does that actually mean when we talk about change for people? What happens to people that you work with when they become more present? What kind of things do you notice that change in their lives, and what changes in their minds, maybe in their physical body? What happens when we become more present?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So I think, to connect across the board with people that I work with, people become more relaxed, by being present and understanding the truth that whatever you're thinking about that isn't actually happening right in front of you isn't actually happening, right? So we start with the right in front of you or right now. And then we realize, okay, actually, because it's not right now, it's actually not. And that really does help people just dial down the stress. So people become more relaxed. I literally have seen people's shoulders drop away from their ears. People have actually gone to the doctor and been like, I unlost that quarter of an inch from the last year. So I think that's pretty neat. Again, sometimes we tell people that they can't change, they can't reverse, they can't undo something that they've done. And none of that is really true. I mean, I'm not going to say that there's not certain circumstances, but for the most part, anything that's happening in your nervous system, in your mind, and in your soft tissues of your body is all malleable and changeable. So people who have less stress and are more relaxed, I've seen a lot of improved sleep. A lot of that has come from improved actions around sleep habits, right? Like not looking at your phone in bed, but like, do we have a lot of emotional wrapping around why we feel like we need to or deserve to or have to do certain things or we should do certain things? And again, when we just stop and we look at what is and we realize that everything that's not happening right now is just not happening, it really can change how we feel. And then once we feel that certain way, we realize that, you have control, the ability to feel that way, that you have the ability to take actions through stopping, through presence, through breath, through movement, through positioning. Then you realize that you can replicate them. So a lot of my clients, like you talked about this awareness that you mentioned, like, oh, I'm thinking about this, and you're saying it, they'll be like, oh, I was fixing my posture on my walk, or I was sitting up straight, or I noticed that I was looking down at my phone and I changed it, or I put my phone away, or whatever. And so people will start coming to me with like the statements about what they did when they weren't in between the sessions. And I love this because it's like a funny example, but I have a client I've worked with for 15 years. She's been with me through every iteration of what I've done. And she does not like to exercise on her own between sessions. But even just today, she told me, oh yeah, that this is where this just came from. Like, I realized that on our walk, like my shoulders were being weird. So I pulled them down and back. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you can tell your husband you are actually practicing in between our sessions because you just told me that you did. And I always think it's interesting because people they don't count these things. They don't like to count them. And again, this gets into the judgment about, right, all the self-judgment that we have. And so I think that through the process of noticing and through noticing the actions that are possible and noticing yourself doing those actions in real time, it does help people remove a lot of judgment. They stop judging themselves and they stop also judging other people because they start to become aware of, the thousands of times per day that we do things, these repeated patterns. And so, my ultimate goal, obviously, I like to help people, but I want to create a happier, more peaceful world. And, that by doing this process, with individuals and groups of people, that we all become less judgmental. And when we're less judgmental, we're less stressed, right? So it becomes, right, it becomes a loop and things dial down, things simmer down or they calm down. So yeah, I mean, I would even go as far as to say people are happier. I know that's a tough quantifiable thing to say, but generally speaking, people who are in control of their breath and are, in a better postural positioning, they have less pain, they're less stressed, and they're happier because they're experiencing their life in the present moment. And, once you're there, once you're in the present, mostly everything is beautiful. There's a lot of beauty, a lot of gratitude to experience in the present moment. It's always there because you're always with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And so instead of kind of regretting the things that we didn't do in the past or worrying about what might be, tomorrow, next week, a year down the road, taking that time and just actually looking around what's happening now with us and bringing that back to the present moment. Yeah. I love all those changes that you're describing. And I think people might not realize very often that this is accessible to pretty much anyone to come into the present moment. This is accessible to all of us, and we can do this at any time. So coming to that realization that we can make those small changes anytime that we choose to. Yeah, I love that. Now, people might be getting curious on this episode how they can work with you, and what you've told them about posture and breath work might sound very interesting to them. So would you like to go over some of the programs and services that you offer so listeners can get an idea of how they could work with you?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. And happy that folks are listening. I'm happy to connect with each one of you. If you're interested, you can book, if you're ready, you're feeling like, okay, I'm ready to do something, you can book a one-on-one call with me, a take action call, and I can get to know you a little bit and we can, see the different things going on at different times. But my signature coaching program is called the Presence in Action Program. So after those calls, if it seems like a good fit and you're ready to dive in and you want to take this approach holistically, we always meet you where you're at. So, again, I like that you're noting that we can do this in small increments, that it can be a little bit at a time. I provide a lot of video support as well. So if you're wanting to just check out a few of those things, you can check out our YouTube channel, Active Potential. Got lots of short videos, breath work and body movement activation, looking at your posture. I also talk a little bit more about some of the philosophies there. So if you're wanting to check that out, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I do work specifically also with performers and musicians. I do have a couple of special programs there. So if you're a musician, I run a free musicians health community on Facebook where we can connect with other practitioners and other musicians who are sharing in some of the similar challenges and struggles that you might have being a performer, being a touring professional. We get into some of the specifics on performance anxiety and challenges with technology and business as it relates to not being an artist. I treat everyone like an athlete. So also, if you're an athlete and you're looking to really up your game on the physical level as well as the mental, again, I think booking that call with me is a good place to start. And I have a special membership for musicians. So this is a more dialed in specific things to do right before you perform, right after you perform, self-care on the road. So if you're a touring professional, we have something inside the musicians membership called the Van Companion, which are all things you can do in a small cramped space like an airplane, a van, a tour bus without disturbing the person next to you, maybe inspiring them, but being able to manage and take care of yourself in that environment specifically. So yeah, I'd love to connect with any of y'all who are listening and keep this going. Let's all keep being with each other, being present, and help reduce our individual stress, our global stress, and bring about more peace in the world.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love the van companion. I like that idea because very often, especially also if you're working, people will look at you very funny if you all of a sudden start doing some weird exercises. So yeah, I love that. That sounds fantastic. And we will definitely be linking to all of Lisa Joy's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there on all the ways that you can get in touch with her, that you can work with her. And we'll also put the link to her YouTube channel there so you can have a look at her videos. And this has been another incredible episode, and I really hope our listeners have enjoyed this journey into presence in action as much as I have. It has been fantastic chatting with you on the podcast today, Lisa Joy. Thank you so much for all the wisdom and the knowledge and your energy that you brought. I had a fantastic time, and I hope that our listeners learned a lot about being present and how that's available to all of us, and enjoyed this episode. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you as well. Just remember, you're always with yourself. So you always have your breath, you always have the body that you're in, and you always have this moment to experience it as you are.
Yeah, wise words. Thank you, Lisa Joy, and take care. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejourney.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.